What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Culture 316. I am one of your co-hosts and producers, Jordan Nahisi.
Brought to you by Return of the Mo. I wasn't here last week, but I'm back, people. What's up?
It is typical Peel Mask Mo is back, y'all. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. I think this is episode 15, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you guys for continuing to support the podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube or if you're on Facebook or if you're on Instagram or whatever it may have you. If you are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, be sure to like and subscribe. Give the show 5 stars. We genuinely appreciate it because that is how you guys keep us going and how we continue to chart and all these good things. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. But without further ado, we're going to get right into the show. So, first thing is first, so this past week, actually late last week, WWE had announced that Survivor Series this year will be taking place in Chicago. Now, this is not the only big event of the fall season that will be taking place in Chicago, as AEW also announced, I believe it was All Out weekend, which will be in Chicago, I believe in September. So, one, I want to know how you feel about Survivor Series being in Chicago, and do you think too much wrestling is happening in Chicago at this point? Because between AEW, between WWE, it just seems like there's a lot going on.
I feel like it's very risky, but it kind of goes to show you the confidence that WWE has in itself. Because
Mm,
I personally, if I was running a business, I would just try to find another state that
mm,
equally is obsessed with wrestling and make that my bitch. But
mm.
that's pretty bold of you to even like decide to. They would come downstairs, wouldn't they? If it were me, I personally would have found another state because I feel as though when you pollute one state with so much of one thing, it kind of lowers the urgency to want to go. Like for
Mm.
example, they don't come to New York that often. Both shows, they don't come to New York too often, so you feel the need that, oh shit, they're gonna be in New York, like they're going to the Barclays, like,
Yeah.
should I take advantage of this now? Because if not, I'm not gonna like get this opportunity for another 6 to 8 months with the way that they move. So I feel like you kind of maybe had to let it play out just a little bit, but I feel like Chicago does feel like it's AEW now. Like
Mm.
now, if you mention Chicago, especially because they got like their Lord and Savior CM Punk over there, I just feel like Chicago made up their mind. Like there's people in Chicago walking around with CM Punk tattoos, for crying out loud. Like their loyalty is to that man, and I feel
Mm.
like it's to that brand. So it's a bold move.
Mm.
But if they manage to just like get enough like viewers and get enough like tickets sold, I would be shocked. I'm not knocking it.
Mm.
'Cause I want to see what happens. I'm rather intrigued. But I'm just like, what oversaturating Chicago, as if again like Philly and New York ain't right there. Do you
Right.
think that they feel slighted that they lost a town that's known for wrestling as well? What do you think?
To be honest, I don't feel that WWE feels as if they have lost a town. I do believe, however, that they do want to keep this kind of this back and forth, this tit for tat, interesting. Because obviously AEW is having All Out in London, All in London, right? And then for Money in the Bank, we see John Cena come out and say we need WrestleMania in London, and then we have AEW doing All Out in Chicago, and now WWE is trying to do Survivor Series in Chicago. So I think it's just a healthy form of one-upsmanship, and I feel like that's what makes competition good. That's what makes any wrestling boom period successful, is when companies are trying to go tit for tat. As it pertains to um Survivor Series being in Chicago, I think it's a great move. I don't feel like WWE is going to suffer because of AEW being in town, because I mean AEW is going to be in town I think 2 months prior. So it gives people enough time, to gather their coins. And also I believe that because WWE has created a very, very unique identity with the Survivor Series brand, there are certain things that are very, very unique to Survivor Series and make Survivor Series special, that differentiates itself from AEW's All In shows. Granted, All In is their biggest show of the year, but with All In, there is nothing that is signature about the show. The Royal Rumble has the Royal Rumble. The Money in the Bank match has the Money in the Bank match. WrestleMania is WrestleMania, right? The Survivor Series, it is the show before Thanksgiving with the 5-on-5 traditional elimination style tag match, or now with War Games. So you're going to get something in Survivor Series that is going to be different from whatever AEW is presenting, because Survivor Series already kind of has its own identity. However, to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, I do feel like Chicago is definitely being oversaturated with wrestling. I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot. It's interesting because the way that I feel like AEW is using Chicago is the same way that WWE was using Brooklyn back in like 2014, 2015, 2016. Like I remember there was like back to back to back Summer Slams, back to back to back NXT takeovers. Like then Raws and SmackDowns were all at the Barclays. And I feel like the way that AEW is using Chicago is kind of the way that WWE is using or was using New York City as a whole, and specifically the way that they were using the Barclays Center uh, a while ago. So I feel like AEW is just trying to establish Chicago as its home base. Obviously, Tony Khan has his own personal roots there. We all know how crazy of a city Chicago is when it comes to wrestling, and like you said, CM Punk is Chicago. So
Yeah, word.
I
I feel like a lot of employers must be fed up with the PTOs that are
oh
coming in for wrestling shows, bro.
oh my god, they've had enough. They've had enough, and it's worse when it's probably and these employees is probably like, "Hey, yo, I gotta call in six." Like, brother, we know you're
I saw the
going to,
fucking ad.
we know you're going to a wrestling show, my boy. Just be honest with us. But we'll see what happens. I'm very, very excited to see Survivor Series in Chicago. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it on my end. We want to know how you guys feel about Survivor Series in Chicago. Let us know in the comments below. But we're gonna keep this ball rolling. So, speaking of WWE, according to Dave Meltzer, it seems as if WWE is reporting record merchandise sales, which exceed the number of the Attitude Era. Um, I think this is very, very indicative of just the success. Now, my question to you is: do you believe that WWE has kind of surpassed where they were during the Attitude Era at this point in time?
It's so hard to answer because like it depends on how you look at it.
Mm,
And how you look at like the state of wrestling for what it is. Because if I go and ask my dad right now, and like he started watching wrestling before the Attitude Era, but if you ask him like what's the best era, he's going to just like say the Attitude Era. He's going to go into like the Rock, Stone Cold, all that. You
mm-hmm,
know what I mean? Because like if you ask any other person on the outside and you tell them make a wrestling reference right now, or you mention any type of tagline, if it's from the Attitude Era, they're going to perk up. But if you mention anything from now, they're like, oh, yeah, I stopped watching it then because I realized
right.
it was fake, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like it's a beautiful thing. It's actually a beautiful thing that the merch sales are going up. And I wonder, is it contributed to the shows being a little bit better, or is it because of like the mainstream outreach? Because
Mm,
shoot, I'll be opening up my phone and I see like Liv Morgan at like a Barbie event or whatnot. I see Bianca Belair and Wildin' Out. Like they're still like WWE is still, despite what everyone else thinks that's an outsider watching it. WWE is still like very much mainstream.
mm,
You know,
yeah.
so I don't find it all that shocking, but it does make me excited as a fan to like see that it is like picking up popularity
Mm-hmm.
again. Um, I'm not sure if it has to contribute again to like the shows or it has to do like with the competition going around, because I noticed too, even like with AEW, for example, they're also working on being mainstream as well. So it's not like they're not in the known.
Right.
I mean, they didn't this Taker and Michelle McCool just pop up on the Shade Room last night for crying out loud?
I remember
No,
that
I'm
with
just
the
saying.
shark.
Yeah, over a
Yeah.
shark. Over a shark, but it makes me smile. It really does make me smile that it doesn't feel like we're just like a little niche audience. Like it brings a smile to my face, honestly. But
Hmm.
what do you think?
So this is a very, very controversial topic because I was going back and forth with someone on Twitter yesterday about this particular topic. I'll read my tweet just so that the people them at home know.
He was eating him up. I'm
I,
gonna tell
I
you.
honestly was, and to be honest, I'm going to start off with this. Facts matter, ladies and gentlemen. Data matters. Okay. There are some things that can be measured, there's some things that can't, but the facts are the
Hmm.
facts. And sometimes you got to get out of your feelings and you got to pay attention to what's real. So, No DQ obviously tweeted, WWE's 2023 merchandise sales said to highest in company history, including the Attitude Era. I tweeted, while the Attitude Era remains one of the most iconic in WWE history, we can't continue to refer to it as the golden age anymore. WWE has never been bigger than it is right now, and the data and the numbers speak for itself. Now, this person, there's a couple people that were like, what data? WWE makes a majority of its money from the TV streaming rights in Saudi Arabia. Another person was like, well, the Attitude Era, they have bigger stars. I can't name a star for you in WWE right now. Let me explain something to you, all right? Yes, they make their money from Saudi Arabia. Yes, they make their money from TV and streaming rights, but we're talking about strictly financial here, all right? The most profitable year, before 2016, the most profitable year in WWE was 1999, where they brought in $68 million, right? They have beaten that year two or three times over in the past 2 to 3 years. The merchandise sales have gone up. Attendance has gone up. The TV rights and deals have gone up. The price on those have gone up. Everything about this era exceeds the previous era as far as the Attitude Era, if we're talking strictly financial. What I will say is that WWE's star power in the Attitude Era was greater. And I feel like the stars that were in that era were bigger stars. The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H. These were people that had crossover mainstream appeal that ended up going into mainstream America and doing film and doing television. And they were, synonymous with pop culture because of what they did on WWE television. Now, because of what they did, they've added enormous amount of value and wealth to WWE, which is the reason why they can sell rights to their library to Peacock for millions of dollars. It's because that Stone Cold and that Rock intellectual property is included in that. Um, Now, as it pertains to the whole merchandise sales being greater than it was in the Attitude Era, the argument is the same because you still have the Rock T-shirts on sale. You still have Stone Cold Steve Austin T-shirts on sale. But now you have this entirely new wave of WWE superstars that are releasing merchandise that are extremely popular. You have guys coming from outside of WWE. Did we not forget Bad Bunny? Did we not forget Logan Paul? Did we, you know what I'm saying? Like all these guys are coming in, they're bringing eyes to the product, they're bringing their audience to the product, and now that audience is cashing in and they're getting the merchandise too. They're part of the social media views that have gone up. So there's a lot of different factors as to why WWE financially is doing better now than it used to. It doesn't always have to deal with necessarily just the wrestling star power. There's star power being brought in from there's star power being brought from outside of WWE. There's partnerships and deals being made with other mainstream companies. You have other WWE superstars, multiple WWE superstars who are going mainstream. We saw Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch on ESPN. Montez Ford and Bianca Belair have a show that's supposed to be, a reality show. We can't forget about Roman Reigns doing mainstream stuff. Drew McIntyre is about to be in a movie. So we have now multiple stars who kind of are doing that mainstream crossover appeal thing. Obviously, not at the level that The Rock or Austin did, but they're still doing that. And then you have merchandise, and then you have these deals that are in place. So I feel like and to kind of build on top of that, and I know I'm babbling a little bit, but and to build on top of that, the reason why I said that the Attitude Era cannot be referred to as the golden era is because anytime we refer to an era as golden or a superstar as golden, we are referring to their profitability, right? A lot of people consider Hulk Hogan the biggest wrestler of all time because of how much he drew. We call John Cena the greatest of all time because of how much he drew. So if we're basing someone's greatness based off of how much they're drawing, does the same stand for eras? Does this era stand as a greater era than the Attitude Era because it's more profitable now than it used to be? Just things to think about, things to ponder on, you know?
I mean, you're most likely arguing with a boomer. Like, let's be honest. No, I just feel like in 2023, if you're bringing up like Hulk Hogan in your arguments and like the whole golden era thing, I just feel like you're not paying attention. Like, you probably tuned out of wrestling over a decade, 15 years ago at least, and you just kind of can't get over that things move on.
Right.
other stars take place, and they take place in different forms. Like I understand that yes, Hulk Hogan was part of a bunch of like commercials and deals, and he was on cereal boxes and stuff like that. Like he did like a lot for his time, but now it's a different time where you have like so many different like paths that could make you otherwise get your product around, as you mentioned, the crossovers, the shows, the movies, and stuff like that. And I just feel like people just maybe because it's not in front of their faces or they're not watching it, they're not accepting it. But I think that we did reach another golden era. It's just not in the form that we're used to seeing it, or maybe because maybe the people that you speak to aren't talking about it. But that's kind of how
Mm,
the way the world works. We're still somewhat of a niche audience, but it doesn't
absolutely.
mean that on the outside looking in, they're not still the biggest company right now and hitting another high where they're at in terms of profitability.
I
They're just doing
agree.
it a different way. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%. I was actually going to say, and I was just thinking about this, and I wanted to ask you. Speaking of eras in WWE, what is your favorite era of WWE? Is it this era? Is it the Attitude Era?
Um, it's hard. I always feel like whenever I get this question, I always struggle with saying the ruthless aggression and the Attitude Era,
Mm,
just because the Attitude Era was so fun, so chaotic. Yes, it birthed like the most memorable characters of all time. But I wandered in as a small child around like 2004,
yeah.
and like that's when John Cena became my hero. You know what I mean? Like John Cena, Randy, Eddie, and all that stuff. And it was still bleeding parts of the Attitude Era, but it wasn't like nearly as. I mean, it was a little messy, but it wasn't like Vince Russo messy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? It was still very like you had storylines that were super compelling in the wrestling that matched up. Like that's when you had like the superior stars come in, like Kurt Angle
Mm,
and who should not be mentioned, Benoit. Um, Batista was great. John Cena was great. Shawn Michaels. I mean, yes, I know he was in a previous era. Triple H. I know he's from a previous era, but like we had like some of the more quality matches mixed in with great storytelling that kind
mm-hmm.
of blended the two, so it wasn't just like you were only into wrestling because of the soap operas.
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, I guess off of that, I'm gonna go with the ruthless aggression, and I also want to add just because that's when women were actually like wrestling for real, for real.
Mm.
At least when I was watching, I mean, I got a
Ruthless
taste of.
aggression.
Yeah, I feel like females were wrestling. I feel like they actually started like wrestling. Like, I mean, because who did you really have in the Attitude Era that was like a female that was like actually wrestling that wasn't
This is true.
China or Jazz or Jackie. Like you only had like a few names to like go
Right.
after, but as a female, like as like a small girl that was watching wrestling, I obviously want to resonate with another woman, and
Right.
I happened to walk right in on when Lita was away
President.
from the Hardys. She was doing her own thing. Trish was trying to get the hang of the ropes. I had Molly Holly. I had Victoria to go off of.
Right.
Christy Hemme also came in. Like it was fun for me.
Mm,
So I'm gonna go with that, but I could be biased. That's just what I saw as a kid.
mm.
What do you think? What was the your favorite era of wrestling?
So, funny thing is, I'm going to have to agree with you. I believe that the best era of wrestling in WWE was the Ruthless Aggression era. And the reason why I say I feel like the Ruthless Aggression era was better than the Attitude era because the Ruthless Aggression era was a more polished Attitude era. It was a more polished, more stacked version of the Attitude era. So let's talk about it, right? So, in the Attitude Era, you had Rock, you had, Austin, you had Hunter, you had Angle. Who else did you have? You had Mick Foley for a little bit, but what was your mid
Yeah,
card scene looking like? What was your tag team scene looking like?
that's
You had probably
true.
the New Age Outlaws as like the tag team of that era. Edge and actually, I take that back. Edge and Christian Dudley Boys, Hardys. So yeah, you had a pretty good tag team scene around that time. But women's and mid card were kind of like the weak points of that era. But because the attitude era, because the ruthless aggression era um was essentially what happened when WWE bought WCW and ECW. You had the creative geniuses behind ECW and WCW booking Raw and SmackDown as separate brands. You had a stacked main event scene. You had Triple H, you had Angle, you had Rock, you had Undertaker, you had Austin for a little bit. You started getting an emerging Brock Lesnar, an emerging John Cena, an emerging Batista, an emerging Randy Orton. Then in the mid card scene, you see the rise of Edge. You see Eddie Guerrero. You see Chris Benoit. You see Rhino. Um, in the intercontinental scene, you have Randy Orton. You have Rob Van Dam. You have Booker T. You still have in the tag teams. You still have the Dudleys. At one point, you had Edge and like a couple other. You had Rated RKO. DX made a return. I just feel like the ruthless aggression, and then on top of that, the
And when was
video game.
SmackDown birthed?
SmackDown, the so SmackDown came out officially in 1999, but I feel like the SmackDown that we all know and love was really refined around '02 because of the SmackDown 6, right? When Paul Heyman got creative control over SmackDown and you saw him booking Eddie Guerrero and Edge and oh my God, and Rey Mysterio and Kurt
Yes.
Angle. And then we saw him, and mind you, Big Show jumped from WCW to WWE during the Attitude Era. His best run, arguably, was during the Ruthless Aggression era when he was being utilized by Paul Heyman. So I feel like when it comes to the different eras in WWE, I feel like the Ruthless Aggression era is by far the best era because I
Yeah.
think it was just more polished. I think that they had a blueprint, like they had a blueprint, they had a system, they figured out what worked for them, and they were able to kind of go from there and build more stars and integrate people from other products into their product and make it successful. So that's my thing pertaining to
No, I
that.
agree
But
with you, man. I was trying to look for that picture where they had. It's a picture that I always see on Twitter all the time, but it's a specific year in wrestling where they had a lineup of the locker room, and like every time I see the picture for SmackDown versus Raw, to me it's like the greatest lineup, like the greatest year of having a roster ever.
they
From
they
personally for me, I'm trying to
they
remember what it was. Like, you know what picture I'm talking about, right? They're sitting in
I
the
know
locker room. You see John Cena, and you see all the great that you just mentioned. Like, and it's put into perspective because
of how
you,
deep they were, how stacked they were.
yes, like it was the most complete roster. Like you just went over how again, like the tag teams, the mid cards, like the world heavyweights, the cruiserweights, or all that. Like it was just, and everyone felt important. Like I know I explained it. There wasn't like really much low points in the shows. Like
This is
now
true.
I know when to walk away from the screen and go take a break.
Right.
Like you didn't do that back in the Ruthless Aggression. So
That makes
yeah, now
sense.
I know the audience thinks.
Yeah, I wanna know what y'all think. What was the best era in the history of WWE? Let us know in the comments below. But we're gonna move on. So, speaking of television, speaking of record-setting eras, it seems like AEW is peaking right now because according to Fightful, sources at Warner Brothers Discovery say that they're in a deep extension talk with All Elite Wrestling. Considering that they've just added Collision to their slate of programming and they're already talking about an extension, does this talk about the success of AEW, or does this talk about, or is this a reflection of where Warner Brothers Discovery is as a company?
Why not both? Both could be true.
Mm, elaborate.
Obviously, no. I'm not as I'm not so deep into this type of stuff. This is usually your department, but off of the way where I'm sitting and I'm looking at on my vocabulary, I personally think that. No, I personally think that it looks like Warner Bros. Has a fave. They're definitely very close with AEW. I don't think Tony Khan's a great businessman, but in terms of this, like he be turning it the fuck up because, like I said, like how did we just get Collision not too long ago and we're already discussing an extension? Because we don't know what extension means. Extension could mean like another day out the week that they're
Mm-hmm.
planning on doing something. You know, are they going to claim a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday? Like, what are they doing?
Right.
Um, does that mean they're getting another TV show in general that's maybe not actual wrestling but something else? But for them to just be rapidly growing with such a major company program,
Yeah.
I think speaks volumes about AEW
Right.
and how they're again always going to be major competition. I think it's very good for them, very good for Warner Bro. But like I said, this is your department, Jordan, so you can pick it up from here.
Say less. So here's my take on this entire thing. I feel like All Elite Wrestling. First of all, there's a lesson in this, a life lesson. Go where you're wanted. Go where you're wanted. There will always be space for you in places that want you, in places that value you, in places that desire you. That's the life lesson. So that's number one. Number two, all elite wrestling has evolved from a t-shirt company into arguably the most valuable property that Warner Brothers Discovery has. If you look at everything else, they ain't doing too hot. I mean, considering that if you follow the DC franchise, the Flash flopped, um, bad. In addition to that, because of what's happening with the writer's strike, there isn't a lot of new content being developed. But AEW is putting on weekly television. They're putting on weekly television on multiple stations. They're drawing viewers. They have the replay value going on. And I feel like what's happening is just that it's a reflection of both, like you said. Um, I don't know if I could talk about Tony Khan as a businessman because I don't know what he is as a businessman. You know what I mean? It seems that he's made some great sound decisions. If for nothing else, he partnered up with a media conglomerate that wanted him, making it a lot easier to go into talks about an extension, talks about, kind of taking place and taking space on TBS and TNT. And just the fact that they're already talking extensions is just an exciting thing because this means more money for the wrestlers. I expect to see, when it comes to AEW, a lot more live events, a lot more, you know, grander television, but they're running. Listen, AEW's running is getting ran a bag, and it's because Warner Brothers Discovery sees the value in it. It's so funny because like Coach Jonathan Coachman, he put out a tweet a
I
couple weeks
haven't heard
ago.
that name in years. What the
In years,
hell?
right? He put out a tweet some weeks ago about Saturday night television, Saturday night wrestling, Coachman, AEW. I'm gonna see if I can find the tweet. But
Now you got
essentially,
his theme song stuck in my head. Thanks to you.
hard hitting, back breaking. His I'm not gonna lie, his song was a little ayo,
If he ain't do nothing, he came out with a fire ass theme song that is part of
literally.
my my playlist, bro. But go ahead.
So he essentially he put out a tweet and he was talking about um there we go. He was talking about just like the fact that Saturday night, here we go. He says, Kyle, what do I know? Been out of the business for too long. You don't know AEW fans. You're an idiot. Just watch. Tony will show you. Let me repeat myself for those except Kyle who clearly listen.
Suck
Rest
Kyle.
right.
Shout out to Kyle.
Wrestling 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 shoes. He was grammatically incorrect. He said wrestling shoes do not work on Saturdays. I think he meant to say shows. Never have, never will. Now you all can try and come up with something else, but try and understand some of us who are in the business kind of know what we're talking about. All that said, I would never float about being right and an entire fan base being wrong. Not my style. What I will say in response to that, obviously Jonathan Coachman being in the WWE, having a prominent on-screen role, definitely knows a lot more about the business than us regular fans do. However, whoever is running AEW a bag has a lot more access to data than all of us do. Only they know the impact that AEW has on the spreadsheet and on the business portfolio of Warner Brothers Discovery. And clearly, if they were given another show, and they're already in deep extension talks. Uh, Clearly, they're making an impact. So I don't know. Maybe we all just are dumb, but I think AEW is doing well, and they're going in a positive trajectory. So there's that.
I just can't imagine the way Tony Khan makes his business deals like behind closed doors. Just cause I imagine him someone so fidgety talking,
He
but
probably got somebody else to speak for him. But
right,
we don't know what he's like. We don't know what he's like in the boardroom. I'm gonna keep it at that. But I mean, listen, if he's getting all this money, he doing something right. So
right.
he's doing something right. But we want to know how you guys feel about AEW being in extension talks. Let us know in the comments below. But we're going to move on. So, uh, as of this past week, the WWE Performance Center turns 10 years old. The facility that was opened by Triple H over 10 years ago has produced some of the most notable WWE superstars on screen, such as Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Bianca Belair, Charlotte, uh, Becky Lynch, even down to former WWE superstar who is now known as Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks. I just want to know, what is your opinion on the impact of the WWE Performance Center?
Um, well, I love that they had a performance center just because again, this is gonna be me sounding biased or whatnot, but um growing up watching like the females wrestle and then hearing as an adult that they had to learn everything on the fly as they go along, while most people had to go through a wrestling school and then work their way to get there. I find it great now that it kind of gives everyone like a fair chance to be great,
Mm-hmm.
you know, offering a performance center to make everyone feel more secure going out there. I can never imagine what the hell it's like, bro, to just like for some people to be hand selected with no experience whatsoever, and then you're just kind of told to go wrestle in front of a bunch of people. I kind of love the fact that they have the performance center for that to help mold people, and it's pretty awesome too because like there's people who I love watching or loved watching, like Sasha Banks, for example. And to think that like her character was going to go off in a totally different direction until certain coaches that she worked with helped mold her boss character into what it is. I forgot what she had beforehand in her mind when she was choosing to like go about like her character for selection, but they're the ones that gave her the confidence to kind of go with the boss direction and kind of emulate a little bit of Snoop Dogg,
Mm.
and it's like this unique character that we would never have thought of before. Like, because it's kind of hard, bro. It's kind of hard to like be a wrestler when you think about it, especially in the WWE, because your goal is to choose something that's different, larger than life, and resonates with characters. And I think it's like a blessing for all the people that are in the performance center to have legends like guide them to kind of just like give them that confidence that they need for whatever idea they have, or to help just like mold it into like the right direction that it should be going in.
Mm.
So it's great, and I think that they should have it. I think that most major promotions should have a performance center for that reason.
Mm.
Because I mean, it helps. Like who better to know? But if I was in the performance center, I'm definitely taking Triple H's advice. I'm definitely taking like Shawn Michaels' advice. Like who knows better than the people who are putting asses in seats? You know what I'm
Mm.
saying, and putting on 5-star classics. So I think it's a great thing. I hope that it continues. It would make me very upset if they actually did get rid of it because again, like we have the greatest of the greats right now for our era because of it.
Mm.
So yeah, that's what I think about it. What do you think about the performance center and its impact?
Man, the Performance Center has not just elevated WWE, it saved professional wrestling. Even down to the just the venue, right? Just the venue. It was the primary place where Raw and SmackDown was recorded during the pandemic. That alone helped sustain WWE. Having their own facility in Florida was able to keep them afloat during a time that was uh, very, very tumultuous to say the least. Now, as it pertains
Mm-hmm.
to just the success of the Performance Center, I think that one of the people that we need to credit is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The way that he mentored and looked after so many girls and guys and help mold them into the people that they are. You can see Dusty's fingerprints and the fingerprints of the Performance Center on pretty much every WWE superstar that ends up going up to the main roster, or any or even just ends up going elsewhere. I think the Performance Center has had a significant impact because, and the reason why I say that it has saved wrestling is because the people that have gone through there, whether they're in WWE or not, still carry the lessons that they brought with them in that Performance Center elsewhere. Look at Adam Cole. Um, Even when you see Adam Cole on AEW, you can see that he carried a lot of the stuff that guys like Shawn Michaels and guys like Triple H taught him, and Roderick Strong. Even guys like John Moxley, who is a free kind of spirited character, you can see that he took stuff from there and kind of brought it with him. And then obviously we have the guys who are the faces of WWE at this point in time: Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, right? Seth Rollins was someone who was very, very big on the independent scene as Tyler Black. He went through the Performance Center, he learned the WWE way, and he's arguably bigger than he's ever been. And Roman Reigns, we don't really have to say much about Roman Reigns. The like the fact that the Performance Center has molded the next generation of wrestlers and are continuing to mold the next generation of wrestlers, not just the next generation of wrestlers, but even at this point, got women and men who are first ballot Hall of Famers at this point in their career. Roman Reigns is a first ballot Hall of Famer. So is Seth Rollins. So is John Moxley. In my opinion, so is Bray Wyatt. Charlotte, Becky, Sasha, Bailey, Bianca. They've all been through the Performance Center. Asuka, Performance Center. These people are all first ballot Hall of Famers. And we're not even talking about the girls and the guys that are coming through NXT now who have an enormous potential. So I just think that the WWE Performance Center has not just elevated WWE, but it has saved professional wrestling as a whole.
I
Because
forgot about that. The
even
whole
the
pandemic, man.
yeah, the whole pandemic thing, and think about this: there's people who left WWE who carry that WWE polish with them, and because of that polish and because of that presentation, like they were able to succeed in other companies. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's a very very big thing, and that's just like my opinion on the impact of the WWE Performance Center. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Did you have anything else to say, bro?
Nah, I did not. You kind of like stole everything else out of my brain.
Yes, I
You know me
win.
do
But
that.
but yeah, let us know how you guys feel about the WWE Performance Center turning 10 years old. What are some of the things that the Performance Center has given us as fans? But we're gonna be moving on. So, uh, AEW Fight Forever recently was released, and it has been announced that they have brought in nearly $1 million in revenue since the release of the game. So, I wanted to know, how did you feel about kind of like, I guess, their first week, and how do you feel about the financial impact that the game has made?
Oh yeah, let wrestling video games be great again. Let them be fun again. Let them be popular again. Like this makes me excited. Like, do you remember being a kid? And I mean, I'm not sure if your mom was set up differently, but I never got games when they were first released. I had to wait till Christmas when they were on sale, and
Same,
then I got
same.
them for Christmas because my mom was not paying that full 16. No, 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 no.
That's a fact.
But I felt like WWE games kind of killed off the momentum of how great wrestling games were and how popular they were. So to hear that like they made $1 million, like that's great because again, like you said, they were just like a t-shirt company in the eyes of most people like 3.5 years ago.
Mm,
And who knows, it could like maybe encourage other promotions to put out different wrestling games. Like it's fun. Like wrestling games are so fun because like it just kind of lets you be able to like let loose. And
mm,
I know people came in with different expectations of the game and we got so used to like the format of how WWE games over time went from being goofy and wacky to just being more close to realism. And I
mm-hmm,
like the fact that they kind of took old properties of what video games should be like. They really shouldn't be stressful, although I told Jordan I love to be stressed out during video games. Um but video games should be fun. They should be a little goofy. They should just let you just let loose and stuff like that. And they just took the most simplistic properties. They didn't focus on making it as real as what we're watching. And like look how much positive attention and feedback that they're getting back and it's showing in the revenue. So I think it's something that should be celebrated. It should be applauded. And then again, it also makes me think, like, is that going to change how maybe like WWE is going to put out their next set of games?
mm,
Are they going to try to go back to their old ways that made the game fun
mm-hmm,
and maybe like tone it down on trying to make everything seem realistic and just, you know, like for crying out loud, in AEW Fight Forever, we got like bombs, we got skateboards, we got fire, we got all types of buffoonery, but it's like it's cool. It's cool. So I think it's great. I definitely still want the game whenever I choose whatever console I want. Jordan, what do you think about it? And does that motivate you to even get Fight Forever?
I 100% want to get Fight Forever. We were before the show even started. We were talking about. I was considering getting a Nintendo Switch. My PS4 broke. It's a whole story. I don't want to get into it. But what I will say is that I feel like um, AEW has done significantly well. This is just kind of like another testament to Tony Khan and the team there. Like AEW has done significantly well. I was just kind of looking up some stats based on their first week sales in the UK. They were a top 5 seller. And they surpassed
Oh,
titles. They surpassed titles like Mario Kart, God of War, FIFA, Hogwarts
not Mario.
Legacy, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2. So like it's not, you know, a scrub of a game. It's been up there with some of the biggest titles in the UK, and that's just a testament to the quality of game. Now, do I feel like this is going to change WWE's strategy? No. I feel
Really?
like no, I don't think so. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like this is WWE's lane. I feel like WWE tried to do an arcade game and it didn't sell that well, and they're just sticking with the realistic graphics.
Are you talking about the
Also
mobile game?
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no. There was a WWE. I forgot the name of it. It was like the one where everybody was like super big, but I forget the name of it at the time.
I
But
thought that was only on your phone for some reason.
nah, 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 nah. It was for like PS3, PS4, I believe.
That's because that
Yeah,
was too cartoonic. Like you had to get it like right in the middle,
right in
like
the
kind of
middle.
how like SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain and Shut Your Mouth was.
Yeah, when you was throwing cats off the top of the fist. But I feel like part of the reason why AEW's game is so successful is because it contrasts WWE. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
I feel like the diversity helps the diversity of games because I feel like it's not really a either or. It's like there's certain things about this that I like, and then there's certain things about this that I like. When I want to like get into like an intense, realistic wrestling game, I can go to 2K. If I want to do something fun, arcadey, I'll do AEW. But I feel like part of the reason why Fight Forever is doing so well is because it's a different game from WWE. And I feel like part of the reason why WWE 2K is going to continue to do well is because it's going to be a different game from AEW Fight Forever. I feel like the diversity and the contrast between two games is the reason why both games are popular and that people want to play both and that it's not a competition because they're two totally different games. You know what I mean? So I'm very very happy that they're doing well. I really 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 want to get a Switch or some type of gaming system so I can play. But we'll see. We will definitely see. But I am very very happy as far as Fight Forever and like just the feel of it. It just looks fun and playable. And like unlike Mo, I like to have fun while playing my games. I like to leave my anxiety for things pertaining to like my 9 to 5 job and
But you don't
other.
feel like accomplished, bro? Like that one level that you couldn't beat for a whole week, you finally beat it. You don't feel like you're the man of the earth. Like
Yes,
I feel like no one
yes,
can talk to me differently.
yes,
I
but
just
like
beat Shao
also no.
Kahn.
Yes, but like no. I like peace. All right. Part of the reason why you like that is because you consistently choose what? Chaos. And that is the reason why is the reason why has an accomplishment to you. But anyway, other than that, but we want to know how you guys have has anybody I want to know. Has anybody played the game AW Fight Forever? If so, let us know how you feel about the game in the comments. Maybe we'll both play it. We'll upload some footage of us playing the game. I don't know. We'll
I'm
find out,
definitely
figure
gonna
it
beat
out.
his ass.
Yeah, listen. I bet you are.
I play to
I
be
bet
stressed
you.
out.
All right. And listen, the last thing, listen, I'm not gonna be out here profusely sweating. I will do a Kevin Nash. Finger poke will do me, pin me. All right. I'm not gonna
No.
be out here. I'm not out here. Listen, I already go to the gym. I'm not trying to have a hit workout while playing a video game. Take the pen. Take the pen. I got it. I choose peace. All right. I choose peace.
I choose
Um,
conquer.
I just listen, and that's the difference between me and you. But yeah, let us know in the comments. We're gonna move on to the last topic of the show. So, as of this week, also, Roman Reigns has surpassed Hulk Hogan for the longest WWE Championship reign in the WrestleMania era. With a reign that is surpassing 1,093 days. I believe that the previous record was 1,092 days. And just to be clear, when we're talking about the WrestleMania era, we're essentially talking about the last 40 years in WWE history. So Roman Reigns has had the longest WWE Championship reign in the past 40 years. So I want to know how you feel about that. Do you think it's too long? Do you think it's too short? Do you think it's well deserved? Let me know.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to preface this by saying, in the words of the great Iron Sheik, fuck the Hulk Hogan.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Iron Sheik.
Rest in peace. I think it's completely well deserved. Just because, as I said previous times, this is like the greatest like not only this character development I've seen from WWE in quite some time. That's actually on the main roster, not from like NXT or whatnot, but like
Right.
actual layers and layers and layers to the story, to all different characters, to where everyone's eating by the end of it. Like it is such a fruitful reign. His reign embodies what most championship title reigns should feel like. I don't feel
Mm,
like you should just get the belt just because you're good, but because of the power that you have and the impact you're going to have on not only the company but the roster itself. Because like as we said before, whoever takes it off of Roman, not only is that going to be a huge notch on their belt, but it's just like the amount of like layers that goes into this belt now that you are literally carrying, and all the people that you basically healed and gave a facelift to the characters behind you while you did that. It's just, it's immense.
mm,
So I think that I know there's a lot of people that are sick and tired of the Bloodline storyline, but I feel like you need to see like the good that's came out of it and why they needed to like let him hold on to it for this long.
mm,
Cause I was a huge Roman Reigns hater. It took me a long time, even when he turned heel, for me to even like come around to him. And there was times where I was like complaining and nagging, saying, "Yo, get the belt off of him! Like, you know, you're not gonna give it to Daniel, you're not gonna give it to Edge, you're not gonna give it to Seth. Like, what are we doing here?" But then, like, I sit back and I'm like, "Wow, like, he really helped this roster. He fed this roster with this reign.
mm-hmm.
Like, that has to get a round of applause." And also, like, why did we not put an end to Hulk Hogan's reign any sooner? To be honest, I'm just saying, like, I just feel like that's a weird thing to keep around in the background when there's been so many other greater stars since Hulk Hogan. That, like, I didn't even know of that knowledge until this came out about Roman. But I want to hear your take about the Thousand Days and why did they hold off and choose Roman?
I feel like the reason why is because they were waiting for the perfect storm. I feel like it's all about timing when it comes to situations like these. I feel like if we go back from the Attitude Era until now, or not from the Attitude Era, from Hulk Hogan's era until now, right? We're talking about, you know, we're talking about late 80s, so that's still Hogan. We're talking about early 90s, mid 90s. Now we're getting into Shawn. We're getting into Brett. Now we're talking about Rock and then Austin. Then we're talking about Triple H. And I feel like during the 90s, it was a point in time where the title had to go back and forth between multiple people to keep the audience engaged, because this was the era where wrestling was live, right? WCW Monday Nitro was live. WWE Raw went live in response to Nitro being live. So they had to continue to make everything surprising. So someone couldn't hold that belt for too long. And I feel like that principle kind of carried over into the Ruthless Aggression era and even into the PG era, right? You wanted to keep people engaged. So nobody's reign was like super duper long. I feel like this is a big thing of timing because, like, I didn't even know that his reign was that long until it was mentioned. And that is a testament to how good the storyline is. I feel like the story should be so good that you're not even paying attention to the accolades that someone attains because you're just so invested in the story. Like, I'm still trying to figure out if like Jay is going to challenge at SummerSlam, and then it's like up, Roman just surpassed Hogan, and it's just like, wait, whoa, wait, how did that happen? It was because I was so invested in the story. But I do believe that it is well deserved because I think that it is literally the perfect kind of trifecta and blending of all the elements. You have a guy in Roman Reigns who is easily the biggest draw in the biggest wrestler in the world based on how much he draws. He is at the top of his game. He is the best version of himself. He is the most engaging version of himself. And he is on top of WWE and he holds the belts. So you have that aspect. Then you have the aspect of the storyline. The Bloodline storyline has been a major part of WWE programming for the better part of 3 years. It has elevated his family. It has elevated people outside of his family. It has elevated a bunch of people on the roster. It's damn near elevated every championship because, like I said in a couple episodes before, it is the Bloodline storyline that made the tag team championships a main event at WrestleMania. which I don't think we've seen in the modern era. It is the bloodline storyline that elevated the US title, that elevated the Universal and the WWE championship, that elevated Money in the Bank. Because a big thing going into this Money in the Bank was who's going to win it, because this person can potentially dethrone Roman. They have the case or the means to dethrone Roman. So the Money in the Bank value was elevated. It has elevated every championship. It has elevated every person involved. It has elevated every, like, it's just elevated the whole program. The tribal court segment lasted 40 minutes. 40-minute segment. And nobody complained about how long it was. It should tell you how well this storyline has elevated the entire company. Um, and I think that Roman Reigns deserves to surpass Hulk Hogan, and I believe that the way that he did it um was phenomenal, because this is literally the best story in the history of WWE. There is no story that has been this good ever, ever. That has been this layered, that has remained at the top of the card, that has elevated this many people. So that's my little stance on that.
I just had to ask, now that you listed all that, do you think you can really make a valid argument right now on who's better between John Cena and Roman Reigns based off of their effect on the company, and that the fact that they gave this privilege to Roman to have the title exceed Hulk Hogan's reign versus, John Cena, given again like how just of a household name he is. I mean, he just
Right.
came back to Money in the Bank, and like the amount of cheers that was just ringing through the arena. Do you think people are going to look back and have like this argument of comparing like who had a
Absolutely.
better, more lasting effect on the company, John Cena or Roman Reigns? Like, can you have that even now?
Absolutely, you can have that even now, because I believe I think it's very the Cena and Roman debate is like the LeBron Jordan debate. It's like there are certain things that you can, like, there's certain things that you can kind of make the argument for now because of how great it is now. Like, sometimes I feel like you don't really appreciate things until they're gone. And I feel like that's going to be the case for Roman, just like it was the case for John. But I feel like what's happening now is so great that you can make the argument for it now, because of the rarity that is attached to this storyline, and the longevity that is attached to it, and the quality. Literally every premium live event for the past year, there has been a plot twist. We cannot say that for any other storyline in WWE in the past 25 years. So I think that you can make that argument. And I feel like that conversation of Roman and John is going to be the LeBron, Michael Jordan argument of the WWE once Roman Reigns retires. What about you? How do you feel about it?
I feel like you could actually make that argument now, but I feel like the same way it didn't settle in for fans how important John Cena was to the company until he left, and then he came back and he just had like this enormous pop. I
Hmm.
don't think people are going to be able to like foresee that till he takes, like you say, like a year off from the company, and like he comes back and we see the reaction that he gets, because he
Hmm.
really is that man, and he really is like the face of the company as we're speaking. Like, he has
He's him.
elevated it, he has elevated the roster, he has elevated people around him.
Hmm.
Um I feel like you could make an argument for both. If you would have asked me like 3 years ago, I'm cursing you out for even trying to put Roman Reigns in the same conversation as Cena, because I was a Cena girl growing up, bro. Like, I might even argue tooth and nail about Cena versus The Rock. Okay, but with all that he's done in such a small amount of time, yeah, that's quite the argument that you could really put a whole case up. You really could.
Right.
Cause he could leave right now, and that man's like, his net worth, his stocks is just way the hell up here. Anyone that takes him for anything, whether it's wrestling related or movie related or whatever the hell related, like, they found a gold mine in Roman for what he did and the
Right.
high note he be walking off on. But I want to ask the audience this. Do you
Hmm.
think you could build a case for John Cena versus Roman in terms of their legacy in this company?
I think. Ooh, um. Personally, I feel like as of right now, I think it's equal almost. I feel like
Whoa.
I think they're on the same level. And that sucks because I'm a Cena fan. But I feel like the one thing John Cena has done it all, right? The one thing that has kind of eluded John his entire career is his ability to put others over. But Roman has done that and has still looked dominant and has still. I don't remember any storyline that John Cena was in that is as good as the Bloodline storyline. I don't remember any
Because John was
championship.
never really in a faction. Like he
John
was
was
always
never
on.
very true. But at the same time, I feel like ugh, John was never in a faction, but I still feel like he could have participated in a story that was more engaging. And there were opportunities for factions with John, but that's a different story for a different day. But I feel like Roman and John are kind of equal. I feel like they're different animal, same beast type of situation. I just feel like it's it's one of those like John Cena as an individual talent is capable of things that Roman may have not done, but at the same time, Roman has done things that John Cena didn't do during his career.
Where I feel like they
So,
need to run it back. They need to run back John Cena versus Roman. They should like had never had Austin Theory versus Cena, and you could give it some time and give
mhm.
them the match. And I feel like that would be the next Cena versus The Rock. It'd be that level of hype.
You're saying that Cena versus Roman is the next Rock versus Cena.
Yeah, considering where they stand in the company,
Ooh, that's a good little hot take.
someone's gonna probably eat my ass up for that. But I'm standing on it firm, 10 toes down.
10 toes down. I'm actually gonna put that question out there. Do you feel like Roman Reigns versus John Cena in 2023 will be the next John Cena versus The Rock? Let us know in the comments. But that concludes today's show. Thank you guys so much for kicking it with us, listening to us once again. Obviously, we'll be back next week, and we'll see you guys there.